Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rishi Agarwal. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Amantis Regtech. I welcome you all to this version of our webinar. And today we are going to address a very important question, which is how do we choose the right compliance management software for our organization? So every now and then we come across this question, and it's important that as decision makers, as influencers, as users in your own organizations, you go through a very comprehensive due diligence to select the right compliance management software, and that's why we have this webinar. I plan to speak for about 30-35 minutes, and then we'll open this up for questions. And please get your questions ready, and I'll be happy to answer them. All of us are very familiar with the power of digitization. Digitization is changing and transforming the way enterprises operate. Technology is helping automate a variety of mundane and routine tasks and freeing up a lot of executive time for managing customers and growing their business. Digital platforms, they pack the power of cloud, mobile, and analytics, making CXOs across the organizations smarter, more efficient, and productive. In our day-to-day life also, technology has permeated to great extent. Let us take an example of Ola and Uber, which have transformed the way urban transportation happens today. Swiggy and Zomato are examples which have transformed the way food distribution and consumption happens in the country today. The journey of digitization started about 3 decades ago, where Indian organizations, they spent a lot of their time, energy, effort, and money in digitizing accounting, followed by payroll. Then they got used to office productivity software. A lot of them implemented ERPs, then human capital management and HR management systems, followed by CRMs, document management systems, and so on. However, in the current way of digitization, a number of compliance officers, risk managers, legal officers, CXOs, they are looking at adopting the digital wave of compliance management solutions. Now, how do you select the right compliance management software is our topic for discussion today. So while softwares are supposed to make life easier for all of us, but too often you may have noticed that they become a source of frustration. There are a growing number of software products on the market, and it has become increasingly difficult to make the right selection without actually breaking the bank. The question here is, how do we sort through all of these choices and find the right software product and the right vendor to support your business? So let's start this discussion today. Just a quick overview of Amantis. We are India's leading regulatory technology company, also called Regtech. We are a team lead company, and we are focused on helping organizations across the country in 28 states and 9 union territories automate the tracking and management of all their compliances across the law of the land. We currently work with over 1,000 legal entities across 38 different industries to help organizations leverage the power of web and mobile platforms to migrate to a transparent, accountable, timely, and efficient compliance management program. So with that said, let's go through the details of today's webinar, how to choose the right compliance management software for your organization. Now, let's look at why it is important to select the right software. Here is a quick slide which helps you understand why this selection is so important. If you make a bad selection, you're actually losing money because these softwares can be expensive. You're losing time because it takes a while to A, implement the software, B, operationalize and adopt it throughout the organization, and C, to make it actually work. Third, it can be a cause of frustration because while compliance officers are accountable and responsible, the KMPs, which is key management personnel, are accountable to the board, chances are the compliance is not one person's responsibility. It is across various functions, and it is possible that the software is not supporting you to make the right decision to get this adopted across the organization. The software may take too long to implement. Any project which takes more than a few weeks often has problems. You may end up missing critical legal updates because in case of a compliance management software, there are two aspects to technology. One is the technology software solution as it is, which includes all the features. And the second is actually a current and comprehensive legal database. When you marry the two is when the right compliance management software happens. In absence of an integrated current real-time compliance database, the software is of little use because in India, law changes between 15 to 20 times a day. If you would like to see the latest legal updates, please visit our website at www.avantis.co.in. You can see it at the bottom of this slide as well. In order to subscribe to National Comprehensive Real-Time Legal Updates newsletter from our website. So that's another problem where you may end up missing critical legal updates because in India, there is no simple way of getting the legal updates. The software may not be very user friendly and it may lead to adoption problems because, as I said earlier, compliance is not a one person's responsibility. Compliance is everybody's responsibility across 7 different functions: labor, finance, commercial, secretarial, industry specific, commercial, and so on. And all these categories are led by different departments and different people in the organization. So it's important that the software is user friendly. It does not require a lot of knowledge of technology and people can adopt it well. And last but not the least is the software may not be flexible enough, may not be configurable or personalizable enough. And as a result, you may be required to change your organizational processes, which further complicate the issues around adoption of the software. So these are consequences of making a bad software selection. Now let's take a quick look at what a good selection would mean. A good selection could mean that you can be off the ground in a few weeks. Typically, Avantis takes between 2 to 6 weeks to implement the software in any company with a clear goal that if something takes more than 8 weeks, chances are, it will take a huge amount of, there is a lot more complexity than required for adopting the software. It needs to have an integrated and comprehensive compliance database. We spoke about that. Real-time legal updates need to be enabled. The software has to be easy to use so that people at various levels in your plant, headquarters, warehouses, various sales and regional offices can easily adopt the software. And the software needs to be highly flexible so that you don't end up modifying your processes to adopt the software. Now, let's go through some of the critical questions as to what questions should you be asking when you, make this selection. So the first and the most important question that you need to be asking is, does this software have all the right features? And we will go through a bunch of features that you need to look at in subsequent slides today, but that's the first and the most important item. Does it have the right features? Because if it doesn't have the right features, then that's probably not even the software for you. Because when you make a software decision, you're not making this decision for the next 1 year or 2 years. You make this decision for the next 5 to 10 years because as it is, entry into a software requires a lot of management time and bandwidth, and you want to make sure that the software that you're choosing is designed to meet the requirements, the growing requirements for the next 5 to 10 years. So that's one, making sure that it has all the right features. The second most important thing is it easy to use? You want to make sure that this software is not designed for people who are very well versed with technology. Because if that is the case, then I can guarantee you it is likely to fail. Because most people who are likely users of this software are not from the technology department. They will be from human resource, they will be from plant, factories, they may be from regional offices, sales offices, they may be from commercial corporate departments, responsible for various compliances, and they may not even be very tech savvy. So it's important that this software that you choose should be very easy to use. And that's what will drive adoption across the organization. The third most important thing is it quick to deploy? Will this software go live in a few weeks, or are you looking at a few months worth of deployment cycle? Because anything that will take a few months is not likely to succeed. It will become too complicated. People will lose the momentum. The organizational sponsorship may not be there after a few weeks and so on. So it's important that you look at the deployment life cycle and make sure that this software can be deployed within a reasonable amount of time. Avantis deploys the product in as little as 2 weeks for smaller organizations and as high as 8 weeks for very, very large setups as well. So that's an important aspect. Next option is, does it have deployment options that suits you? A number of organizations in India are still going through their cloud journeys. So while most organizations have already decided to take on the cloud journey, there are a few who still prefer on-premises deployment. But the moment you go on-premises, one of the key questions is, how will legal updates happen? Will it be silent? Are you going to send patches? And that's where on-premises deployment option creates a lot of issues. So it's important that you understand what is the preferred deployment option and whether your vendor can actually support that deployment option. Next item is, does it offer pay-as-you-go pricing options? World over, as you've seen, including the large software vendors such as Microsoft, they have gone from a one-time perpetual licensing plan to pay-as-you-go. This helps you to maintain and manage your capital cycles much better. In case of one-time perpetual license, the budgetary allocations are much higher, and oftentimes organizations are not ready to earmark that kind of capital. However, if the company offers pay-as-you-go, you can quickly get on some of these, and the price points are much more reasonable for you to embrace and adopt a software solution. The next important question to ask is the vendor viable and can scale with you? You may have come across a number of vendors who are doing compliance software, but oftentimes these vendors are a bunch of people, 10, 15, 20, 30 people, bunch of developers. Sometimes they don't even have the working capital to pay next month's salary. And if you think this is a hypothetical situation, I can tell you that that is not. From personal experience, we know that it's not very easy to build an enterprise-grade, world-class software products company in India. We are a team lease company, and that's where a listed company with a track record of 20 years with a lot of financial muscle behind it helps. And that's where it's important to know whether your vendor is viable or they will wrap up shop in 2 years, 3 years, and then you'll be left high and dry with no other option but to embrace another solution. So that's the question that we need to ask. The last item on this slide is your software highly available and secure? You're dealing with compliance documents and working files. It's important that your vendor has the right credibility when it comes to technology availability and security. Oftentimes, a bunch of screens don't mean an enterprise software. You need the right backup strategy, business continuity. You need to have highly available, secure, fault-tolerant, and self-healing kind of features in an enterprise-grade software. So you need to make sure that your vendor can provide all those capabilities so that you don't end up being high and dry in case either the vendor goes belly up or else your data is at risk. So now let's move forward and talk about point number 1 on this slide, where does it have all the right features in more detail? So here is a slide that talks to you about, what are the key building blocks of a great compliance software. At Avantis, we like to call them as transparency, accountability, timeliness, and traceability. These are the 4 critical building blocks of an excellent compliance management software. Now let's understand these in detail and make sure that you can ask these questions when you are evaluating a software vendor. What's the meaning of transparency? A transparency means that a compliance officer in your company today who's accountable for certifying to the board several times a year that your organization is compliant and has the right compliance system and processes in place to assure compliance, they need to have transparency and visibility. What is meant by transparency? It means knowing what is applicable. That means all the acts and compliances that are applicable to your business. Who is responsible? Making sure that there is an individual or a bunch of individuals who know that this is an applicable compliance for their business and they are accountable for actually doing this compliance, along with the detail of what that compliance is, when is it due, and so on. When is it due? That's the third point. I just covered it. So the person who is responsible needs to know when is it due. The compliance officer also needs to know, has the task been completed? So if that has not been completed, then where is it stuck, what the issues are, and making the right intervention so that when compliance officer is certifying to the board, they have the confidence that there is a system and processes underneath which can assure them that their organization is compliant. So when we talk about a compliance management software, transparency and visibility vis-a-vis what is applicable, who is responsible, when is it due, has it been completed, and if not, where is it stuck, so that the right intervention can be made. The second item here is the compliance management software should assure accountability. Accountability means that there is a named individual who is responsible for doing compliance. There is another named individual who is a maker-checker kind of a model who can review the work that is being done. And then there is an interrelationship between them so that when the maker is doing the job, the checker is aware, responsible, and can review that job. So that's where accountability comes in. The third most important thing here is timeliness. No compliance management program in the world is useful if it cannot assure timeliness. Timely compliances is what is highly desirable. Anything which is delayed can lead to a lot of risks for an organization. To ensure timeliness, you need to have access to location-wise, risk-wise, user-wise, aging of all the overdue compliances, and this information, which is the right information, should be communicated to appropriate users at the right time so that appropriate interventions can be made, and these interventions can lead to clearing the blocks which are holding timeliness is an important aspect. So the third most important thing for a building block in a compliance management software are adequate situations or adequate checks, balances, and controls which ensure timeliness. And last but not the least on this slide is traceability. What is meant by traceability? Every time you're dealing with a large organization, you will be practically dealing with a few thousand compliances. Some of them will be high risk, some medium risk, and a number of them will be low risk compliances. And chances are, in a large organization or a large setup, some compliances may get missed. And when they get missed, the compliance officer needs to have enough material to know where the system broke, where this process broke, who missed it, what was the reason for the slip, and make sure that there is a continuous cycle of improvement in strengthening your organization's compliance processes so that in future you can avoid repeat mistakes. So again, transparency, accountability, timeliness, and traceability, these are four critical building blocks of an excellent compliance management software where a compliance officer needs to make sure that these things are present. Now let's go through some of the other important aspects. A great compliance management software should cover various types of compliances. In India, we largely deal with three types of compliances: time-based compliances, event-based compliances, and ongoing compliances. What are time-based compliances? Now, as the name suggests, time-based compliances have a frequency associated with them. They could be weekly, monthly, quarterly, half-yearly, annual, once in 3 years, once in 5 years. These are various frequencies on which a time-based compliance may be due. This becomes due as soon as that time happens. For example, every month you are supposed to, go through a PF compliance or an ESI compliance. Every so often there's a TDS compliance. Annually you do an income tax. There are various compliances which are time-based compliance. We are all very familiar with them. The second more complicated type of compliance is event-based compliance. Event-based compliance, as the name suggests, get triggers when an event is activated. Now, what is an event? To understand the event in lower level detail, let's think of an event in two buckets: secretarial events and non-secretarial events. Secretarial events may be SEBI and MCA kind of events, which are often managed by a compliance officer or a company secretary within the organization. These kind of events are appointments of various directors, various resignations, conducting your board meetings, your AGMs. All of these are examples of secretarial compliances. As soon as, for example, you schedule a board meeting with a specific date, there are a lot of compliances that become due. There are compliances which are before the day of the board meeting, on the day of the board meeting, and many compliances after the board meeting. And all of these are dependent on the day of the board meeting. So, for example, certain number of days before the board meeting, the compliance officer or company secretary is responsible to circulate the minutes of the previous board meeting along with agenda for this board meeting to all the board members. There is a statutory requirement for certain number of days before by which this agenda is circulated. In addition, when you have the board meeting on that day, there are many things that a company secretary is required to do. As an example, taking attendance, managing quorum, getting the voting done on various agendas. And after the day of the board meeting, you need to do a number of things, including uploading resolutions passed in the board on the MCA website after a certain number of days. Now, all of these get triggered as a result of activating one agenda, which is a secretarial agenda, which is conducting a board meeting with an activation date. So you need to make sure that your vendor has a comprehensive event-based compliance module that helps you to manage the life cycle of all these events. Now, the second category of event-based compliances is what is called as non-secretarial events. Now, example of non-secretarial events: fire in the factory. Fire in the factory resulting in death of an employee. Fire in the factory, which is a chemical fire versus an electrical fire, which is a short circuit. An employee who's lost there as a result of this unfortunate incident, whether they earn more than 21,000 or less than 21,000. These are all questions that come up the moment a fire in the factory happens. This is an actual event. And when this kind of an event happens, there is a whole bunch of statutory compliance requirements that you have to follow. Now, chances are high that a compliance officer sits in the headquarters, whereas some of these events happen in remote plants or locations that you may have. But if you don't have this feature in your framework, oftentimes, while the compliance officer is accountable, they will not have followed the right process, informed the right authorities, filed the right reports, done the right panchnamas, and settled the remuneration or compensation with the impacted employees, whether it is in the Workman Compensation Act or whether it is in the ESI Act, depending on what these conditions are. Now, these are events which are non-secretarial events managed by various constituents in the organization. What is another event example? Change of office address. When your office address changes, there are a number of changes that you need to do with the PF authorities, ESI, income tax, GST, Shop Act with the municipal corporation. And if you're moving within the same municipal corporation versus within the same state versus different states, then there are different compliances such as surrendering certain licenses and registrations in one state and applying for them in another state. All of these compliances need to automatically get triggered when you activate an agenda, which is a non-secretarial agenda of change of office address. At Avantis, in Avacom, we've automated a lot of these life cycles where you can simply go and activate an agenda and automatically the relevant compliances will be triggered and assigned to the right people so that they can take appropriate action. And if those actions are not taken, reminders, alerts, and escalations go to the management so that management can take and intervene appropriately so that you still stay within compliance. So that's event-based compliance. In Avacom, we have created a comprehensive event-based compliance module to deal with such contingencies, and all of these are templatized to a very large extent so that a compliance officer or a factories manager or whoever is responsible, all they need to do is activate the event with the activation date, and automatically all the compliance checklists will get triggered and get assigned to the right people. Now, the third type of compliance here is ongoing compliance. These are the kind of compliances where there is no start date, there is no end date. These compliances have to be done while the organizations continue to exist in a given location. So, for example, at your reception in the state of Maharashtra, you have to display something called Yethe Bal Kamgar Kam Karit Nahit in Marathi. That means we don't employ child labor. You need to display various other things, including the name of the organization in Marathi. Now, as you move from one state to the other, these requirements can change quite dramatically. There may be situations where you may need to display them in Tamil in Tamil Nadu, in Kannada, in Karnataka, and so on. And these displays need to be there throughout the day or night. It doesn't even matter what time of the day. So such compliances are all ongoing compliances. There are requirements of displays of various abstracts of acts such as PF and ESI in prominent places within your organization. All of these and such hundreds and thousands of such compliances fall under something called an ongoing compliance. Now, while the software needs to support ongoing compliances, what you need to understand is whether it can be personalized to meet your requirements. So there are organizations in India who want to review these checklists once a year. There are a few who want to do these reviews on a monthly basis. Now, software needs to be able to fulfill the desires and aspirations of both these organizations. We have seen behaviors in multinational organizations where such compliances need to be self-certified with a checklist once a month, whereas in some of the other organizations, they can be once a year. So software needs to be able to cover both these personalization requirements. So that's the third thing that you need to look for. The last on the slide is the software needs to cover the law of the land. Now, when I talk about the law of the land, let me show you the details of this law of the land. We look at the law of the land as broken into three categories: central government, state government, and local bodies or local government. And across all of these, our product today supports over 1100 acts, close to 60,000 compliances with 3,000 plus filings, and we capture about 15 to 20 changes a day. Now, your software needs to come integrated with an extremely comprehensive framework of legal database with a capability that changes this database appropriately several times a day. What kind of changes happen? So in India, a lot of changes happen, right? Changes to the dates. So sometimes you may get one-time extension, changes to the forms. There are sample forms for certain compliances, changes to the penalties. There may be a percentage calculation changes, changes to the duty structure. For specific items, government may change the duty structure, changes to the timelines, addition of compliance, removal of a compliance. These are all examples of the nature of changes that happen. So if your vendor does not have an excellent compliance database and a capability to modify it several times a day, then chances are that this product or software will become fairly meaningless a few months from now, because all these compliances may have gone a lot of changes. So what you need to look for is, does it have all the relevant acts? Now, this slide is showing you that we in our software have over 1100 acts today. So you should make sure that your vendor has all of these acts and the relevant compliances, along with a framework to modify and update them on a timely basis. Now, this slide that you're seeing on your screen right now talks about real-time legal updates, which are national, that is coverage for all the states and union territories; comprehensive, which includes all the 7 categories of compliances that I just showed you; real-time is modified within 24 hours of the notification; and personalized means it is relevant to applicable acts and compliances to you, and it's not just generic. At this point, I invite you to go to our website at avantis.co.in. You will find the URL at the bottom of this page. If you can see the bottom of this page, you will see the URL right there. Please go there and go to register and sign yourself up for a free compliance updates notification. Avantis.co.in or teamleasecompliance.com is India's only and the first digital compliance updates portal, and it's available for free for you to choose your own industry, the number of states and type of states, various regulators, periods, and so on. And we have digitized all of this by ministry, by department, by notifications, and so on. So I invite you to go there and start benefiting from this. The next important thing is your software needs to have an integrated compliance calendar. What is meant by integrated compliance calendar? What it really means is that the software auto-generates the relevant compliance calendar. Means all the dates on which you have compliances, whether they are time-based, event-based. Within event-based, you have secretarial and non-secretarial, and ongoing. The compliance calendar needs to reflect the number and the risk of those compliances, so that a compliance officer can quickly take a look at it and know what is due, when is it due, who is accountable, and what got done, along with color coding of that. Now, this is something that makes life very easy for the compliance officer. This should be available on the dashboard so that when you need to make appropriate decisions, you can do so just by taking a quick look at the compliance calendar. Now, let's look at the next feature. One of the key features that is required in a compliance management software is flexible workflow engine, because workflow is what helps you model your organization's processes to manage the compliance. So what needs to be there? First, it needs to have a role-based entitlement. What is meant by roles? Roles are at two levels. One is hierarchy. Hierarchy means seniority. What is their level? Are they someone doing the compliance, or are they someone reviewing the compliance, or they are a location head, plant head, factory head, warehouse head, branch office head? That is another level. And last but not the least is headquarters, the CXOs, and within CXOs, those folks who are accountable for managing end-to-end compliances across all your entities, sub-entities, locations, functions, departments, users, and so on. So you need to make sure that your software vendor has a product which is role-based and function-based. What is meant by function? HR, finance, secretarial, these are all functions. So you have two levels at which you need to evaluate role-based entitlement. One is hierarchy, and second is the function. The second, there need to be multiple layers of management. Very large clients who have thousands of branches across the country, they have organized themselves in various zones. First of all, various cities. Cities are clubbed into zones. Zones are clubbed into regions. Regions are clubbed into, they report into various corporate entities. So you need to have capability to have multiple layers of management, and what they can see is what they are responsible for. So a particular branch manager has responsibility only for a branch, whereas a particular region head can see all the branches across. They don't see anything outside of their region, and that's where multiple layers of management with role-based entitlement is important. The next item here is they need to have standard and custom workflow options. You should not, as an organization, have to customize and change your organizational processes. The software needs to come with a lot of flexible workflow capabilities so that software can adapt to your workflows. So you need to make sure that various kinds of workflow options, creating one or more tasks under a specific compliance, giving responsibility to more than one person via task, and so on, is all there. Next, an admin role for self-administration. A lot of times, customers find themselves, constantly struggling because they have to call the vendor for changes to users, their roles, their responsibilities. Some users will quit. Some new users might come in, and all of these things. It is important that you need to be able to be empowered for self-administration. So that needs to be there. What if one of your users is going out of office? How will you do an allocation of their role to somebody else? A lot of softwares do not have any of these features, and that is where in our Avacom, what we have done is given the capability for out of office management to the user itself. So the moment the user says I'm out of office from this date to this date, automatically our software assigns their responsibility to their backup, and that's an important capability which helps adoption in the organization. Now, in addition, the workflow should also support audit role to facilitate restricted third-party audits. Compliances often go through rejections, resubmissions, and revisions. So your software should have options to manage all those flexible workflows. And in order to create a culture of compliance, the software also needs to have provisions to start tracking interest and penalty expenses. And we have made sure that Avacom today supports all these features so that your organization's processes can easily adapt. Avacom can easily adapt to your organization's processes. It's highly configurable and personalizable. The next important item is the software needs to have an integrated document management system, which needs to have version management so that you can manage any number of versions of a given compliance document or a working file. It needs to have capabilities to bulk downloads and uploads so that you can, you don't have to click one button at a time to upload or download. It needs to be secure with high levels of encryption because you are dealing with compliance documents, and everything within the compliance framework needs to be encrypted. and documents are no exception. So the software needs to enable encryption. There has to be a capability for universal document review. That means without having a software installed on your local system, you should be able to open the attachment within the framework of the application itself. It should be tamper proof. That means it does not allow any deletion or modification of an uploaded document, so that the sanctity of the timestamp, date stamps, all of that is managed well. And last but not the least, it needs to have a mandatory review capability. As human beings, you may have noticed, oftentimes we simply do a select all, approve all, and that defeats the purpose of approval. And that's where in our software, we have made sure that there is mandatory review. Until a reviewer opens the document, the system does not give them the approve capability. The approve button is actually deactivated, and only when they review the document is when it becomes active. So that's another feature that you need to have. One of the most important capabilities in a compliance management software is reporting. Now, the software needs to have standard reports, which are graphical, standard reports, which are auto-generated, auto-delivered to all the relevant users. These include aging reports, statuses by entities, sub-entities, locations, periods, risks, financial years, and users. These are all standard reports. So you should not have to go back to the software and every now and then run a report, because the software auto-generates these reports and delivers them on an appropriate frequency to the right users. But at the same time, there are times when a compliance officer has to generate an on-demand report. On-demand reports has multiple parameters, like show me all the open compliances or overdue compliances for this entity or this location, and for this user only, or for this particular act, or for high risk category only, or just show me the HR, not the finance or any other, or from this date to this date. These are all examples of custom parameters that you may need to pull reports on, so that you can do your own analysis at your own time. So the software needs to have standard reporting features, and it needs to have an on-demand or custom reporting features, so that you as a customer are not constantly struggling to get the data out of the system. A lot of softwares do a good job of getting you to put data in, but they do a horrendous job of helping you get the right reports when you need them. And compliance officers are often seen struggling to get this data out. So it's important that standard and on-demand reporting is enabled on the platform, and it is easy to use. It brings me to the last slide on my presentation today, which is having a native mobile app. I'm sure every one of you on this call would agree with me that these days we spend a lot of our time, both in our personal life as well as in our office or organization's life, on the mobile phone. And something that's available on the mobile app, chances are it will be consumed better, it will be adopted better if you get a reminder on your mobile app, versus if you get a reminder on a web app which you are not even likely to log into today. Chances are you are going to take action if it gets delivered on your mobile app. So one thing that you need to look for is having a strong native mobile app capability, both on iOS and Android platforms, where full features apps are there. Full feature means you should be able to look at your dashboards, you should be able to look at the details, look at the audit trail, review the document if any, without having to download that document, because if you download that document, it might compromise security. So these apps need to be secure with PIN numbers and biometric options, so that just in case you lose your mobile phone, you may not worry about compromising the statuses of your compliances. And that's where security is of utmost importance. The next item is, in India, we still continue to have signal issues. So you want to make sure that this mobile app is optimized for 3G and 4G network, and it is not a network hogger. For all you know, the moment you open the app, within 5 minutes, you get a notification that you've already consumed 50% of your allotted bandwidth today. If this app is going to be a data hogger, it's not likely to work. So these apps need to be designed to be highly optimized, highly secure, highly available, optimized for 3G, 4G, and Wi-Fi bandwidth, and deliver real-time escalations, alerts, reminders, and legal updates. And that's what is going to help you manage compliances much better and initiate adoption in your organization. So we are at 3:40 now. This was my last slide. I'm just going to just show you yet another slide, which is nothing more than a summary of some of these features. This is nothing more than just a summary. So at this time, I would want to end my presentation and open for Q&A. And I invite you to put your questions in the options, and I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so we are open for questions. I invite you to start the questions in the Q&A. So there is a question from Venkatesh. What are the data security features that I should look into? Excellent question. So there are various data security that you should look into. One is the data at rest and data in motion. Both should be encrypted. What I mean by data in motion is when you are using the public network, internet, in order to access the software. At that time, HTTPS, SSL standards with 128 or 256-bit encryption is a good standard. And when you upload these documents, while during the transit, the document is encrypted with that standard, once the document lands on the server, it needs to have a stronger encryption standard. In Avacom, we have implemented AES 256-bit encryption, making sure that this is one of the best global encryption standards, and the document is encrypted with your key when you log in. So nobody else has access to it but your chain of command in the organization. So those are important things. In addition, for cloud, you need to look for DDoS, vulnerability and penetration testing, and so on, because these are important aspects of a compliance management software. A lot of vendors do not invest in building an ethical hacking team who can do ethical hacking, penetration testing, vulnerability testing to identify issues or security issues in the software. So you should look for those evidences. The second question is, what are the current clients from banking and financial sector who are using this software for compliance management? There are a large number of clients that we have in that space. One of the largest NBFCs in country is Muthoot Finance. They are a very, very large NBFC with presence across the length and breadth of the country. They are one of our clients, key clients. There are other NBFCs such as Hinduja Leyland Finance, again, a loan book into a few thousand crores. There are clients for an extremely long time supporting hundreds of branches across the country. And like that, in microfinance, in education finance, in vehicle finance, in gold finance, SME finance. These are all sectors within finance, and we have adequate number of big clients in each one of these. I would like to know how this software differs from other compliance management softwares in the market. Anurag Gupta, thank you so much for asking that question. The first picture is worth 1,000 words. Rather than me telling a lot of good stuff about our own software, let me invite you to visit our website at avantis.co.in. I'm just opening it here, and you can look at it as India's only, digital compliance updates portal. And you will see that this reflects changes already from today, right? So if you go here, since morning, Anurag, we've already captured 6 legal updates here, and you can click on these 6 and you can see what these 6 legal updates were. All of these are tagged by industry, by state government or central government. And when you click on any one of them, you will see the lower level detail, which is the act. If you bring your mouse over the act, you will see that this is a Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. You will see which ministry it belongs to, which regulator it belongs to, what industries is it applicable to, the synopsis of the change, and at the end you can see the document also. So if you were interested in seeing the notification that was actually issued by the ministry, you can simply click there and see the notification. Now at Avantis, we use the power of artificial intelligence, machine learning, smart crawlers, and OCR, and we digitize every one of these documents to make them Google-like searchable. So you can see that this is a scanned document. Ministry has actually scanned it and put it on the website. Believe it or not, we actually have already digitized this and made this searchable. So if you go here, you will see that we allow you to create a free account for yourself, and you can choose your preferences and sign up for a free newsletter, which is available free of cost today. A daily newsletter, a weekly newsletter, a monthly newsletter, and these options are categorized by the states that you are interested in. union territories, central government only, various state governments, various industries that you may want to see, date ranges that you may want to see. All of these examples are the examples that give you an idea that our compliance database is by far the best. So that's one. The second thing is that technology. I come from an extremely high-end technology background and capability, and our technology, while you will not see it from the front end, is highly secure, available, fault tolerant, self-healing. It's hosted on Microsoft Azure with state-of-the-art penetration and vulnerability testing done. And this is something that we do on an ongoing basis before any new piece of code gets released into production. Our software gets extremely tested across the length and breadth. So feature-wise, you will see we have included features which are not included in most of the software. We have a native mobile app that doesn't exist in most of the software, and all of these things increase the experience, improve the experience, and increases the adoption in your organization. So these are various things, but I'm happy to have a more personal discussion, and reach out to us, and we'll be happy to do a in-person demo and have a more detailed conversation. Does your app provide a real-time update? Yes. Thank you, Harshit Shah, for asking that question. Our app provides legal time updates. You can actually get a sense of that by downloading an app called Rulesbook. I pronounce it as RULEZ, spell it as RULEZBOOK. So go to Play Store or App Store, download an app called Rulesbook, RULEZBOOK, and do a quick 2-minute review. Download it and personalize it, and you will be able to see all these legal updates which come real time, and they are available for a limited time for free on our Rulesbook app as well. Next question from Manjunath here is how your team captures clients' new activity, business changes to operations. From a compliance point of view, Manjunath, thank you for that question. It's an important question. There is nothing static in our client's organization. So every now and then they would add a new plant or a new warehouse, or they may expand their footprint, add new offices in the country. They may do new equipment such as new weighing equipment, hoist lifts, cranes, pressure vessels, boilers. And every time they do this, we have a support team of 35 people who are available on chat all the time. And in a matter of seconds, our clients can reach out to us on chat, seek the list of changes that may be applicable to your updated business, and we can assist them or tell their admin to be able to configure these things very easily in a matter of a few clicks. So that's how we do the changes. Is your app equipped with FEMA and FDI related compliances? Absolutely, Harshit. They come under the law of the land, and as I mentioned earlier, any act, any section, any compliance across country is a part of our database. Out of our 1100 plus acts and 60,000 compliances, it's a part of that. The next question by Anand is, when you delegate the permission to someone with the organization, are changes made by admin or concerned person, can you do it given access only for certain compliances or all? You can do it for certain compliances. It is all extremely flexible. You don't need to do it for all the compliances. So yes, so it's highly personalizable. Does your software also cover compliances to be followed by professional services firms? Absolutely. Professional services firms can be service providers, consultancy firms. Yes, they are covered. We have a large number of customers who are actually from professional services firms, and they use our product as well. So the answer to that, KCO compliance, is yes. I think I have answered most of the questions on this. Is there any other question? We have another maybe 5 minutes. I can take 1 or 2 more questions. But in case you are interested for a more detailed discussion, I invite you to go to our website at avantis.co.in. There is a video right here. I invite you to watch that video. There is a video here. Watch that video. Go on the products and services page. There is another video inside the products and services page under compliance management, and I request you to watch that video when you get a chance. There are a few resources such as blogs. We have done a lot of work writing decent articles which can help you think about your organization's compliance management program, I invite you to go visit that section, read up some of these blogs. If you would like to schedule a demo, on the homepage of the website under the call button, you will see a number. The number is 8893594595. I repeat, it's 8893594595. Please call us and we'll be happy to schedule a demo for you in greater detail. If you want to understand how we have worked for specific industries, there is a section called case studies on our website, and we have put case studies of having worked with multiple industries across the country. So I invite you to go through that, and more often than not, you might find the industry that you're interested in. If you don't find it, give us a call. Chances are high that we may have worked with another company in that industry, which may not be listed on our website yet. Let me see if there's any other questions that has come. I guess not. So once again, I thank you so much for taking the time, joining us on this webinar today. I hope this was useful for you. And if there are ideas that you have for us to do webinars for future, I certainly request you to let us know, and we will pick those topics up for any subsequent webinar, which will be done in 15 days from now. So thank you once again. Really appreciate your time, and have a nice day.